discovered Quilts of Valor in Belleville. And with me I have Barb Runner, who lives in Monroe, and Janet Walsh, who lives in Monticello. And today we are delighted to be presenting 5 Quilts of Valor to veterans here at the church. So let me tell you a little bit about the Quilts of Valor. It is a non-profit grassroots organization with quilters from all across the U.S. And in 2003, a quilter in Blue Star mother had the idea of making comforting quilts for veterans during the time her son was deployed in Iraq. And in a dream, she saw a veteran dealing with the terrors of war, and in the next sequence of that dream, she saw that warrior covered with a healing and comforting quilt. And that's how the Quilt of Valor program began. Since then, and so that was in 2003, and since then, over 350,000 Quilts of Valor have been awarded here in the United States, Germany, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And our volunteer membership consists of over 11,000 quilters all across the nation. And the mission of our foundation is to cover service members and veterans touched by war with comforting and healing Quilts of Valor. So we have gathered here today to be honoring such veterans. Our quilts must be awarded directly in a ceremony with a veteran, such as we're having here today. Our quilts are a single lifetime award. Some say that a Quilt of Valor is equivalent to a civilian equivalent of a Purple Heart. But unlike a Purple Heart, which is stamped out, our quilts took at least 3 months to make, and each stitch is sewn with love. So veterans, when you receive your quilts, know that 11,000 hugs are coming your way. Veterans, just as you are unique, our quilts are unique. Your name has been inscribed with a label on the quilt's back, so future generations will know what you have done for your country. There may also be a letter from the quilt maker giving you her background. And I will tell you today that Janet Walsh, who is a member of our organization, but one of our long-armers, has long-armed all of these quilts. So the top layer, with its many colors, shapes, and fabrics, represents the communities and the many individuals of our nation. The batting is the center of the quilt, its warmth. It represents the hope that this quilt will bring you warmth, comfort, peace, and healing. The backing is the strength. It represents the strength of the individual, the strength of their families, the strength of their communities, and lastly, the strength of our nation. So we are now honored to present the quilts, and Barb and Janet will be wrapping the quilts. So veteran, when I call your name and after I give you your background, if you will come up here, our ladies will wrap you with the quilt, and then you can have a seat here. And then after the ceremony, we'd like to take some group photos, because the quilters always like to get pictures of the awardees. So we will now begin honoring and presenting the quilts. So the first quilt goes to Dean Ferguson. He entered the United States Army in 1965 and served until 1986. He served stateside during the Vietnam era. He left service as an E7. Is Dean here? Come up, Dean. Dean, come up, please. Okay, Dean, if you will just have a seat here. Our next recipient is Dwayne Godfrey. Dwayne served in the United States Army. He served in the United States Army between July 1967 to July 1969 during the Vietnam era. He left service as a Spec 4. He was a military policeman and served stateside at Sandia Base in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Dwayne. Our next recipient is Jean Luxinger. Jean? Jean served in the United States Army between 1969 to 1971 during the Vietnam era as a radio operator in Germany. He left service as a Spec 4. Jean. Our next recipient is Randy Minder. Minder. Randy Minder served in the United States Navy from 1968 until 1972 during the Vietnam conflict. He was aboard the USS Ticonderoga, a CVS-33 in the Pacific Fleet. He had several tours into Vietnam. The carrier was stationed out of San Diego. While in the service, it was Randy's job to provide assistance in running power to the equipment brought on board the carrier for the recovery of the Apollo 16 capsule when it returned from the moon. Randy. Our next recipient is John A. Stenbroten. John? John served in the United States Army National Guard from 1970 to 1981. He was stationed at Fort Knox, Kentucky, Fort McCoy, Wisconsin, and Camp Douglas, Wisconsin. He was with the 158th Transportation Company, Wisconsin National Guard. John. Veterans, as of today, the story of this quilt becomes your story. We hope that you will use this quilt as a tangible reminder of the love with which it was sewn for you. Thousands of men and women across this land are forever in your debt. It has been our privilege to honor you with a Quilt of Valor. And so, on behalf of the Quilt of Valor Foundation, a grateful nation, and with our deepest appreciation, Sugar River Quilts of Valor, thank you for your service to our country with these Quilt of Valor awards. Thank you and welcome home. So now, family, would you like to we take some pictures? We can do individuals, group pictures. I know we would. My group would like to get a group picture. So come and share your thanks with these veterans.